This is the deserved downfall of Amy Schumer. Hello, you gorgeous donut. In the mid-2010s, Amy Schumer was selling out multiple arenas. She had hit movie after hit movie. She was actually named the face of the new wave of comedy in the mainstream media. However, despite her quick rise to fame, her fall-off was just as quick. How did somebody who became so successful a year later become so hated? Arguably the most hated comedian on the planet? Well, in this video, we're going to discuss every little part of Amy Schumer's journey from her rise to fame all the way to her peak and the quick dramatic fall-off. This is one of the most interesting journeys a celebrity's ever been on, so stay tuned to the end so we can figure out the truth behind it all. Now, Amy started her journey on this planet. I don't know why I said that. She came out her mother's womb in Manhattan, New York, if you're interested. I think sources do say. Now, she apparently grew up very wealthy. Up until the age of 9, she lived in a nice part of Manhattan. However, after the age of 9, her dad actually got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which meant that his business actually went bankrupt, as obviously he wasn't able to work to the capacity that he once could. And this meant that the entire family had to obviously move out of their posh area. They actually moved to a place called Rockville Center in Long Island. And this would be a whole new experience for Amy. Obviously, she's not kind of used to this more rough area compared to what she used to live in. And unfortunately for Amy and her family, her parents actually got divorced when she was 12, 3 years after moving. She would remain with her mother, who raised her, and during school, Amy would win various awards such as the class clown, and she also won Teacher's Worst Nightmare. I don't understand how that's an award. Is that an award in your school? The Teacher's Worst Nightmare, so basically just the one student the teacher can't stand. That's a mint award to win that, to be fair. Put that on the CV. Yeah, every single person that tries to control me hates me. Now, despite Amy having to move to this area and, you know, her parents splitting up, which obviously is a horrific thing, you could argue that that actually benefited her career in the long term, because many comedians are formed from kind of adversity or going through trauma as a young person. They kind of make light out of the situation and they kind of work the muscle of writing jokes and just kind of trying to make themselves feel better by lightening the mood on things. You see this time and time again. Rarely do you ever see a really high profile top level comedian who hasn't been through some shit, which I kind of see as a good thing, because you're making good of a bad experience. Now, she would later go on to get a degree in theatre, and she would actually start her stand-up comedy career in 2004, where she played her first gig at the Gotham Comedy Club, I believe. She has done various interviews and podcasts talking about why she wanted to have a career in comedy.
Did you always know you wanted to be a stand-up?
No.
Not at all?
No.
Well, you were voted class clown, I saw.
That's right.
Yeah. So
you did your research. I was funny, but I never thought of stand-up.
So how did it happen?
I tried improv. Like, I did, like, some, scam classes that you have to pay for, I don't know if those still exist.
Yeah.
But one of the girls in it did stand-up. So I was like, I went to see her, and I was like, I think I could
really
maybe try. It seemed fun.
Is it still, like, your favorite part of what you do?
No.
No, I actually think it's kind of shite, if I'm honest. I just did it because someone else was doing it and I didn't want them to be better than me. Got it out eventually. There we go. Give us a second sometimes, guys. Now, I do find it interesting, like the pipeline of being the class clown to being a stand-up comedian, because a lot of times it doesn't really work. As, you can be funny in like a classroom or you can be funny in like a large group, but actually having to write jokes for stand-up is it's a much different skill. That's why you often find a lot of stand-up comedians were actually like the quiet people, possibly like quite nerdy in school, because they're very good with their pen and they can kind of bring that to light on stage, as I believe that's kind of where most of the work is done with stand-up, isn't it? It's all in your prep. Now, I have found some early stand-up clips of Amy before she got hugely successful.
And you know what I've realized about men? Not good at planning. We know this. Men are terrible at planning, unless it's for a threesome. Then they become f***ing event planners. I'm like, you bought place cards? He's like, and I'll handle the music. I'm like, I don't think she wants to hear the Braveheart soundtrack.
I don't think it's that bad. I actually think that's quite a good bit. It's creative. It's a little bit different. I haven't heard that before.
I just got broken up with. I was dating a mime. Thank you. I didn't even know he was a mime at first. I just thought he was like pale and quiet. I'm like, he just likes The Cure. You guys don't get him. But it was hard. I just couldn't get close to him. It was like there was like a wall.
We probably should have stopped it after the first one. You know, that one was, some people are into that kind of mime humor. But this is the beauty of comedy, okay? Like, someone else's favorite comedian is someone else's most hated comedian. If everyone laughed at the same thing and everyone had the same humor, the world would be very boring. There's also a clip of one of her first appearances on Ellen when she was on the come up.
I went through a bad breakup this year, but I know it's just, you want everything to be perfect, right? And we wanted totally different things in the bedroom. Like, he was always turning the lights on, and I would shut him off, and he'd put them on, and right before we broke up, he was like, Amy, why are you so shy? You have a beautiful body. And I was like, oh my God, you're so cute. You think I don't want you to see me? Thank you so much.
Why do I feel like the laughing track was kind of edited in there a little bit? She kind of got off the stage as soon as she could. She said the joke, went right bye. She didn't even finish the sentence, man. But again, comedy is subjective. I will never say that someone isn't funny. They're just possibly not funny to me. And this is the thing that confuses people with Amy Schumer, because you often find people saying, she's never been funny in her early stand-up routine on Comedy Central or her specials. She's never made me laugh. However, every single year she seemed to become more and more successful. So very clearly some people were laughing at her things. Not some people, a lot of people, which actually helped her to land a show with Comedy Central. This was called Inside Amy Schumer. It was basically like a skit show, like if you've seen the Chappelle show with Dave Chappelle. Kind of like SNL vibe, where they just kind of, take things that's in the media and just make skits about them. Just take the out of them, really. And this show was hugely successful and really kind of, catapulted Amy to one of the most successful comedians straight away. Inside Amy Schumer actually got renewed for 5 seasons, which, obviously it was making the network, Comedy Central, a lot of money. I'd never seen any skits from this show, but just like the general kind of opinion on Amy Schumer, I didn't go into it with much hope. And the couple that I watched, I kind of understood why people wouldn't like it, but I could also kind of see why people would. A lot of it was kind of centered around like and just taboo topics. Some of them you could argue were controversial as well.
My friends are here and they're hungry. What else is new? Sure, they're not little kids anymore, but they still want a snack that's fun. That's why they're not getting regular old chicken fingers. They're getting finger blasted!
Introducing...
Children saying that they're getting blasted. I don't know if I'm laughing because it's funny or just because, who wrote this? Who was like, yeah, honestly, this will be a banging skit?
Finger blasting is the perfect thing to hold them over until they're ready to move on to something more serious, like dinner.
Try 1 finger at a time.
Yum.
2 fingers.
Okay.
And then, if everybody's cool with it, work up to 3.
No, 2's good. For now.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I can understand. Obviously, it's like children saying this, but then it's just a little. I don't know how I feel about this, but I think this is the general vibe of the Inside Amy Schumer show. It kind of makes you confused how to feel. Rather than laughing, you're just sitting there like. But all of the comments, absolutely love this. I definitely think there's a difference with, American humour and British humour. This is very kind of SNL skit kind of humour, and that doesn't work as well in the UK for some reason. I don't know why it is. I don't know if UK humour is a lot drier, whereas generally, on American TV shows, it's a lot more, dramatised and kind of in your face. I'm not trying to say one's better than the other, but there is a stark difference, because something like this would just not really work in the UK at all. Now, obviously, you can tell by how many times it got renewed. The show was really successful. The reviews were really good as well. And I definitely think Amy was kind of on a roll here. She definitely had a lot of momentum. Everything was very fresh as well. So people had not really been exposed to her too much at this point. So people were still kind of in the honeymoon stage of Amy. And by 2015, she was no longer just a comedian. She was a full-blown brand. Now, very similar to what Kevin Hart did, Amy also made the transition into movies after being a stand-up comedian. She had a movie called Trainwreck in 2015, which was hugely successful, I believe, with Bill Hader in it. Now, the movie would actually make $140 million gross, which is insane for basically one of your first, hit movies, especially when the budget was only $35 million. You've basically, quadruple or five-drupled, is that a word? The budget? I have no idea. It is now. Very successful, okay? That you can't dispute that. For people that haven't seen the movie, it's a commitment-phobic career woman who has always thought that monogamy was impossible, must face her fears when she meets a good guy. Again, very centered around Amy's brand of talking about relationships. It just kind of feeds into what she's building here. Now, after this movie would hit cinemas and it would be a success, this also added to her stand-up. She was now doing arena tours, which very few comedians managed to get to that level. She was also doing stand-up special after stand-up special. Again, a really great feat, and these specials were actually paid for by networks, which, you know, obviously is like millions of dollars in her bank account. She was also hosting award shows. She was doing like late night television. She was releasing books as well. Like, she was doing everything. Shockingly, I haven't read this book, but it is called The Girl with the Lower Back Tattoo. I don't know if that actually is her tattoo. That would be very concerning, and I don't think it's worth it for the bit, if I'm honest. Now, the reviews for this book are actually really good. You know, it's 4.2 stars out of 5. That's incredible. And 11,400 ratings as well, not just, you know, a couple bumping it up. And again, this was feeding into her brand of being like sexually explicit and just kind of just talking about topics that other comedians probably don't touch upon. And because she was basically becoming like, I guess, like an A-list celebrity at this point, Hollywood actually nicknamed her a feminist icon. And at around this point of getting nicknamed that by Hollywood, she actually made the Forbes 100 like most richest list. Bearing in mind, she was the first woman comedian to ever be featured in this list, which obviously is a massive accomplishment. It says here that in 1 year she made $17 million, which also made her like the 4th highest paid comedian overall. Bearing in mind like some of the names of comedians, that's an incredible achievement. However, despite all this success, one clear thing that you can really see written all over Amy's face is it's never really enough. Like, she always wants more, and she started to tell people this as well. Like, she had a Netflix special. They basically pay you a lump sum for you to put your hour on Netflix and only Netflix exclusively. Now, she got paid only 11 million for that, just, you know, the little 11 million. But she wasn't happy, as both Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle got paid $20 million for those. Now, she basically said that it should be equal pay for like women and for men, and this was why she wanted more. She basically wanted 20 million, or they have to come down to her 11 million. Now, Amy would actually go back with her team and get an extra 2 million out of Netflix from this situation. And I do understand, you know, from the viewpoint of you are a huge comedian, you should be able to pull in the same as what other comedians should be, who are your equal, but they're just a man, so they get paid more. I totally understand like how that's terrible. But around this point, I think it is important to note that Dave Chappelle had like went on a hiatus, and his first ever stand-up special coming back was on Netflix, which obviously he was one of the biggest comedians in the world when he just left Comedy Central. So I do understand why Netflix possibly paid him a lot of money, and Chris Rock obviously has been a huge comedian for like decades. So it's definitely an interesting talking point, and I feel like the payment for, you know, specials should go on how many people you can actually bring in, what your value is. And clearly Amy thought that her value was on the same level as Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle. She did later go on to say that she didn't actually demand the exact amount of money as them two, but obviously you kind of just have to take her word for it, because that's the report that was circulating. Now, this was one of the first kind of high profile controversies we'd seen from Amy, and this was just the start. Now, one of the first major talking points that got people kind of batting against Amy Schumer was the joke theft accusations. Now, I didn't realise how big these accusations were until researching for this video. I thought she just nicked like one joke here or there. There's like a full catalogue, which I didn't realise. There's like 20+ minute videos dedicated on YouTube to showing you the side-by-side comparison of the original person that made the joke, and then Amy Schumer basically just taking it and like kind of swapping a few words around. Now, again, I need to make clear that these are accusations and this is all allegedly. You can be the judge if you really think that she has stole these jokes.
And they crawl into your bed, and because their bones are growing and everything, they can only sleep in certain positions, obviously. The crucifix and the swastika tend to be the most popular.
Because I swear I found the one guy in Manhattan that loves like spooning, you know, just hugging all night. And I like sleeping by myself like a swastika. I'm just like...
Again, I don't even know why you would steal that joke, because I don't even know if it's funny. But it's very, very specific. You know, not many... I haven't heard that joke before. Now, you could say this is Amy taking it, but I honestly believe that Amy has writers for our show. You could say it's the writers. Something very similar happened in our James Corden downfall video, where basically the writers for James Corden's late night show had took a joke from Ricky Gervais. Clearly, James Corden just kind of replicated it. This can happen time and time again, especially when it's from like smaller comedians, because the bigger comedian kind of thinks, well, people haven't seen this before, so I can play it off as if it's my joke.
Blacking out is when you drink so much that your brain goes to sleep, but your body gets all Eye of the Tiger and Soldiers On.
And I black out when I drink. Isn't that the worst? No, your mind goes to sleep.
but your body's like, tonight is my night.
Again, it's literally the exact joke, just with the song swap. At this point, I'm starting to think, oh, how is there still like 24 minutes left of this? Now, some people might be watching this thinking, well, is it really that big of a deal if she said a joke that someone else has said? But within, like, you know, the landscape of comedians, this is obviously very frowned upon, because this is originally came out of someone's, you know, thought process. Someone has spent hours writing this, and then someone else kind of creams off it and just, you know, makes money off that joke. I think that's when it becomes a lot deeper.
Some people say, no glove, no love. However, quantum mechanics dictate.
Okay, can you just put it on?
No.
Amy, you.
Okay, yeah, that's just straight up just Christ. Yeah, you can copy me homework, but will you change a couple of things around? Yeah, no stress. Gives the same thing. Now, the accusations of her stealing jokes didn't just kind of, you know, transfer on stage or in her Inside Amy Schumer show. She would actually do it at award shows too, which kind of baffled me, because they're in the same setting. Like, surely you know that people are going to understand that this has been done before. So, at an award show, Neil Patrick Harris did this joke.
Gosh, there's just seat fillers all over the place. Hi, what's your name? Steve. Nice. First time here? Yes.
So, very funny, you know, like picking one of the most famous people in the room and being like, are you a seat filler? Very simple, very clever, very funny. And Amy definitely thought that too. As when she hosted the Oscars, she thought, I'll just put that in my set as well.
So it takes 2,700 people to put on the Oscars, and every job is equally important, okay? The gaffers, the camera people, the seat fillers, everybody, all right? And so what the seat fillers do, I hear you, seat fillers, I'll just explain.
Wait, what's her name again? She's so famous. She's on like Grown Ups. Oh, I need to get her name because she's amazing. Maya Rudolph. That's it. Oh my God, she is giving her the biggest side eye ever.
Oh my God. Actually, you know what? Let me just show you what the seat fillers do.
Don't
okay,
you dare.
Here's a seat filler. Can we get you
Don't
up?
you dare
Honey,
choose
you wanna go to
Kirsten
the
Dunst.
Bathroom? Okay.
Hey! That's Mary Jane! I'll have you know! Put her back down! Do you know she once kissed Spider-Man when he was upside down? You leave that woman alone! Hasn't she been through enough?
Thank you, seat fillers. Love them. Jesse, I loved you in Power of the Dog.
You know, that was my wife, Amy.
You're married to that seat filler? Oh, that's weird.
Oh, he doesn't find it funny. He doesn't find it funny. Oh my God, that was so painful. It's just the way that it's done. It's not as, like, with Neil Patrick Harris, very clearly, like, you knew it was a joke. It was very lighthearted. With Amy, it almost looked like, I don't know. It's like everyone didn't seem like they were involved in the joke. It was like Kirsten was just kind of put to one side and she's kind of like a side character. I know that's the joke, but surely she should be involved like Steve Carell was. Doesn't hit the same. I remember watching a YouTube video like a couple of years ago where someone brought up the fact that she went on Ellen. Ellen had a talk show back in the day for people that don't know. And she basically like repeated one of Ellen's jokes back to her without knowing that it's Ellen's joke, or possibly just forgetting that Ellen made it in the first place because she's took inspiration, you could say, of so many other comedians.
Is the popcorn really that delicious we must shovel handfuls of it into our mouth?
Very relatable, Ellen. Thank you.
And I'm eating popcorn the way I think we all eat popcorn, which is, you know, at first don't you always kind of start out kind of like lying to yourself? Like, like one piece at a time, you know, and then like you get a little more real, right? And then eventually you just like, you get real and it's just, gah!
Now, I do possibly think that she doesn't realise that, you know, Ellen has done that in a set before, but again, you could argue that's just something that loads of people do. And, you know, I don't really think it's the most original kind of bit from Ellen anyway, so she might not have actually have took it. I'm just trying to see this from both sides. But after you've seen clear indications of her possibly, you know, taking other comedians' jokes, I just wanted to include this one because it was actually face-to-face with the person. Now, on top of the accusations of her taking people's jokes, the jokes that she'd written by herself weren't going down too well as they had in the past. At this point in her career, she was definitely trying to push the boat out more and become like more offensive and more controversial. There was this time where she was hosting an award show and she basically mocked the death of Steve-O from Jackass's friend.
And Steve-O is here. Steve-O, great try. Steve-O!
But I truly am, no joke, sorry for the loss of your friend Ryan Dunn. I know you must have been thinking it could have been me, and I know we were all thinking, why wasn't it? Thank you. Oh, Mike.
Did Mike Tyson just say you, Amy? That was funnier than the joke. I hate it when someone makes a joke and very clearly the person just isn't, feeling it. Especially someone like Steve-O, who, the amount of jokes he's had at his expense. He can take a joke, but you can see all of the comedians on stage there are like, like that's his friend who's recently passed. It's not really, I just don't, I think I could take a joke. And if I'd had a friend that had recently passed and someone on stage was taking the piss out of it, like in front of people that I didn't know as well, I think I would probably have the same reaction. Now, this would happen time and time again. And at this point, Amy's kind of brand had took a dramatic hit. And by the late 2010s, loads of negative things were happening. Like everything she was touching was basically going wrong at this point. She was making more movies and they were declining at the box office. None of them could repeat the success of her Trainwreck movie. From my perspective, I feel like a lot of Amy Schumer in the, first part of her career definitely thrived on the fact that she was new. She was bold and she kind of just said what she was thinking. There was like a huge shock value to it, but you see time and time again with people whose main kind of, trait is their shock value. Eventually, when they say loads of shocking things, you're no longer shocked at what they do, so then they kind of just fall off. It doesn't hit the same when you know what's coming. The surprise isn't there anymore. The element of surprise is gone. And people weren't watching her specials anymore because this kind of story around Amy was like, if you've seen one of her specials, you've possibly seen it all. Now, I think it is quite harsh that she was judged at this point this way, because a lot of people were saying she's no longer funny. Yeah, there's a lot of guy comedians that aren't funny and people go and watch all of their specials. Like I said, what's funny to someone else is not funny to other people. But with Amy, it seemed like even her audience was getting bored of her, and I think that's when you have a real issue. I did want to go back to this point and have a look at some of her stand-up clips just to see, like, the level of them and if she was getting judged harshly at this point.
And I got worried. I gained all the weight. I'm like, oh my God, are men gonna still be attracted to me? And that's when I remembered, I always forget this. It's another reason I love men so much. Men each day have a thought that goes through their head where they're like, I don't know why, but I want to put my penis right in your hole.
I'm going to be very careful here because I understand that men are the joke and I don't want to come off as if I'm like hurt by that. So like I understand that joke's on me and I'm just recognizing that like it doesn't hurt me or nothing. One thing I will say though is I don't really think many men do think about that, especially in the book. I mean, personally, just not a fan. Right? Just personally, I don't think I've ever saw someone walk down the street and go, oh my God, I want to put my penis in her. That man is down bad, horrendously.
I want to take the most sensitive, intimate part of myself and just like ram it right where you poop. Just like ram it. They're thinking that, and I'm over here like, oh, should I get highlights?
Yeah. Obviously, shock horror. I'm not a woman, right? There we go. My secret's out. Oh! So I don't know how like a woman feels about Amy Schumer's comedy, but from my perspective at least, it seems like her comedy is very targeted towards like the male gaze. All of her humor is like, how can I be attracted to men? Like, why am I not attracted to men? What can I do to be attracted to men? Like, it's very much just kind of gearing up so that a man finds her attractive a lot of the time. Like, you've just seen it in that clip there. Like, why do you care? The only reason you were getting highlights was for a man in the first place. Is that what you're trying to say? But now you're not because he wants to stick it in your butt. I can understand why people started to lose interest, but again, I'm always maintaining the same scope on this video. I don't think I'm the target audience for Amy Schumer's comedy, so I don't think it's like my opinion to say whether it's funny or not. It's just not funny to me. Now at this point she was getting a lot more scrutinized on YouTube, like we've previously reacted to. There's various videos of her joke accusation stealing. There's people literally making videos being like, I'm not turning my stream off until I laugh at an Amy Schumer joke. There's this guy who made a video saying watching Amy Schumer until I laugh, and the video is an hour long, and it's got 8.2 million views. But at this point, I honestly think that Amy suffered the same thing that many other celebrities, even not in the same field as her in other fields, kind of get, where they're kind of oversaturated. You see it on YouTube as well, where basically you're overexposed. Too many people know who you are. No matter what app they go on or where they go, your face is there, and eventually people get sick. Despite that putting loads of money in your pocket, you've kind of went over the edge of how much you really should be exposed. I see it time and time again in so many industries. This is a a real thing. And it's almost like it happens overnight, where people just kind of go past this imaginary line where the audience is like, I'm sick, I can't see you anymore without just feeling hatred in my soul. You probably got that with someone right now. Hopefully it's not me. I mean, I'm only really here, you know. You go anywhere else, you don't see us. And it definitely seemed like Amy didn't notice this, as she was constantly going on more and more talk shows, but they just weren't hitting the same as what they were on the come up.
It's hard to go on the road, to tour right now, because who are we competing with? Who's been filling up our feeds? Beyonce and Taylor Swift. Like, this is who I'm competing with. You know, I love both of them.
I don't think you are. You know, I don't think that you, Beyonce and Taylor Swift, have the same audience. That is mad to put yourself in the conversation with them too. It's just so hard because, like, I've got to compete with them too. Also, you don't need to compete with them. You know, there's enough for everyone to eat here, Amy. Now, obviously, after this clip, people were going to criticise this, and despite people getting, you know, kind of more sick of Amy and seeing that everywhere, she would often do, like, more public stunts to be more famous, I guess. There was this thing that she did on like a red carpet where Kim and Kanye were walking down when they were together, and she basically like fainted in front of them, but it was a prank. And like, this is like a really famous meme photo. Again, Kanye and Kim kind of just looked at her and just walked past. Like, if there's any couple that you're going to do this to who aren't going to care, it's them two. They'll literally just be like, yeah, okay, bye-bye. Others might be like, oh my god, are you okay? Not them two. They literally have like hearts of stone. She couldn't have chosen a couple that would give less of a so true. The more and more I've kind of, you know, researched about Amy, the more I kind of go back to the start of this video where she won the award for being the class clown. This is very much class clown behaviour, where you will do anything just to get attention because that's the thing that you thrive off the most. Now, one thing I do want to bring up at this point is I do feel like people, when they are sending hate to Amy, kind of use it as a vehicle to send hate to all kind of women comedians in a way. You often see people say, oh, proof that women isn't funny is because of Amy Schumer. Whereas that's not fair. Like, if you don't find Amy Schumer not funny, that is completely fair, but you can't then generalize like all women as that, because there's loads of male comedians that aren't funny and are successful, but that doesn't mean that other comedians who are male aren't funny, because there's loads of funny male comedians. It's just a shame that, you know, arguably the most famous and most successful woman comedian ever is so universally hated by men. I was watching this one video from another YouTuber called Gabby Bell. I think her videos are really good, and she actually talked about Amy Schumer, and she discussed how like mainstream women comedians often blow up because they're seen as like more vulgar, and they talk about taboo topics, and this is their way to be kind of successful.
To me, Amy Schumer's humor just relies on these big two things, which is only talking about being a woman, only talking about vulgar stuff like and periods and tampons and We deserve better than Amy Schumer. I know, that's coming out of left field here. I'm demanding better as a woman. I think we deserve better mainstream comedians.
And I do feel like that is totally fair, and you know, just because Amy Schumer is a woman comedian doesn't mean that she represents all women. The same as a male comedian doesn't represent all men. There's some male comedians that say the most horrific, and I'm like, I don't agree with that. Like, I don't think that's correct. But I do find it interesting how, like, you know, it's generalized a lot more just because Amy's a woman. Very interesting. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where Amy Schumer is in another 5 years, because I don't know if she can ever kind of recapture the momentum she once had. But it will be interesting to see. Let me know what you thought of this video, Donut. Honestly, I love doing these character profile mini doc videos on people. I find them so intriguing and interesting. If you want to watch another video from me that is the exact same style of this, we did one on James Corden, where basically we discussed the rise and fall of him going from one of the beloved English comedians to being hated worldwide. Or if you've already seen that one, we've done one on James Charles, where basically he went from being a nobody to kind of like an overnight millionaire, and then his dramatic downfall. So go and watch either of those. I'll see you over there. Bye bye.
Cam Kirkham, baby.